Okay guys, so welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to be starting with CSS. So basically this is going to be an introduction to CSS, and I'm going to make it as easy as possible, and I'm going to continue from where we stopped in our last HTML video, using it to explain how we could easily navigate into CSS. So based on this video, I'm going to wipe this off, so it's not going to be list of countries anymore. Then we're going to assume that this is going to be a header. So the very first thing I'm going to teach you before we enter into anything is how to use a div. So a div is how you classify each sections of a website. So let's say the when you open a website, the very first thing you see at the top is the header. The header is when you see the home, followed by the about us page, then the contact us page will be in this section, then any other page. So the whole thing is what you call the header. So we have to kind of separate the header from other parts of the website, so and all that. So in order to do that, we are going to hit enter here. I'm going to type our div. So once we type our div, and we hit enter, well, we should copy this here, cut it, and put it in the middle of this div right here. So we're going to wrap the whole thing with div. So when we wrap this whole thing with div, we could come here and say home, about, about, and contact, or contact us. So contact us. So let me just explain. So after the body, so the div here is representing the entire header, then followed by the unordered list. This is going to show that this is an unordered list. So we could have something here under the div that's going to be maybe we could say it could be the logo, or we could come and type it. We could say John's website. So we hit save. So it could be John's website. Exactly, John's website, then followed by the list. So we have the home, the about, and the contact us. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we are going to name the div. So as you can see, this is the div here as the parent tag in the opening and the closing, but then we're going to just give it a name in the opening tag. So come here and say ID. So give it an ID. It's then we'll now say this should be the header. So we could say header and hit save. Nothing changes. So basically we've just given it a name like that. Okay, so now that we're done with that, the next one we're going to do is we want this whole thing here to appear side by side, just like we see it on regular websites, where we would see John's website as a logo, then followed by maybe the home, then followed by the about page, then the contact us page. So that's basically what we want to do here. So we want it to display as a row instead of differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to invoke the CSS. So CSS basically stands for cascading style sheet. So it's basically styling. So to invoke CSS into this, we just have to, space style. So just type style equal to double quotation. Then the double quotation here, we're going to say display. So I want to change the display to row. Display, then colon. Then in CSS, if you want to say display row, you don't just say display row, you say display flex. So it's basically the same thing as row. So we'll come here and we'll type display flex. Then we hit save. And as you can see, it has now displayed side by side. But we still want the home, the about, and contact us to still display side by side. And you might ask, why is it that it changed here, but it didn't change here? That's because if you can look in the div, we instructed the div to display as a row, which is display flex. So meaning only the child tags are going to display as row, which is John's website, and the list in total. So it's not going to be, because the way we listed it is these ones are still inside the UL. So it's going to be the H1 and the UL that are going to be side by side. So only the H1 and the UL. So in order for us to make the LI to display, side by side as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar to what we did here but since we've already given the parent tag to display as row, what we're now going to do is we'll come to these ones here that we want to display as row. So come to each and every one of them, and we'll come here, we'll type, let me just copy this, we'll type copy this, then we'll paste it here. So we're going to do the same for all. We're going to do the same for all. So what we're going to do now is, because if we hit save, nothing is really going to change. The only thing that is going to change is the dots are going to disappear. So, but in order to make them now display side by side, what we're going to do is we're going to type inline flex, inline. So in front of the flex, just type inline hyphen flex. Sorry, inline hyphen flex. So we could just copy that and just have to go to which one you want to display um as the row. So we just say inline flex. So once we hit save, so it's now going to display side by side. So that's how you do that. So now you can see John's website, home, about, then contact us. But now there's something I'm going to teach you. If we keep writing all our CSS inside our HTML like this, at some point it's going to become very, very messy and harder to read. So in order to eliminate this, we're going to make a separate file for our CSS, just like we did for our HTML. So we're going to get rid of all this. Let me just go back, get rid of all this, then we hit save. So we come to this section directly on top of the title, we hit enter, then we're going to type link, just link. Then once we type link, our Visual Studio Code is going to recommend CSS for us. So once we hit CSS, so this whole thing is going to pop out. So this is now suggesting that from this template, it's suggesting that we should name our CSS file style.css. You could literally name it anything you want, but if you want to name it any other thing, you just have to change this. But this is saying we should name it style.css. So we hit save, then we come over to this section and create a new file. So we just name this style.css. So we hit enter, and now we have a new CSS file. So what we just did here in our HTML is we just linked our HTML to this CSS file. So meaning instead of typing all these things inside here, we just have a separate file for typing all of them, and it's going to appear there. So we could just come here. So now that we've given our div a name, which is a header, so we could just come and we'll come here to the CSS, and if we want to get this div here, that is called header, that will give an ID, we could just come to our CSS and we use a hashtag. We use hashtag. The ID we give it is header, so just a hashtag header. So now that we've done that, the next thing is to use curly braces. So invoke our curly braces. You find it on your laptop keyboard. We hit enter. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now say for the header, which is representing the whole div here, we could just come and say the display should be flex. Hit save, and now the display is now flex. So we could come here again. So for the same header, we could do whatever we want with it. So that's just that. So remember, what we did in our HTML before was we said the display should be flex here. Then we now came here and we now said this should be inline flex. So the next thing we're going to do here is to actually give this an inline flex. That's the grandchild of the div. So in order to do that, and for us to link it to the style.css file, we have to use, instead of using an ID, we have to use a class to select all of this. So the difference between an ID and a class is an ID is specifically meant for just one thing. You get, but a class is meant for if I want to select this in my for my CSS, select this and this. I can't use an ID for that because an ID wouldn't work for all. What works for all is called a class. So the difference between an ID and a class is an ID is meant for just one thing, and a class is meant for selecting various parts of a HTML element. So I could say class, then the same thing equal to, then double quotation. Then I could come here and say I could say header list, or I could just say menu lists. I could say menu hyphen list. Then I could give that class to all the LIs. So I could copy, then paste it here, and as well paste it here. So now I've just given all the grandchild of the header a class of menu list. So now what I'm going to do is when I come to my style.css file, I'm going to go here, and please, in case if you're having a problem, maybe you want to view you want to view the CSS while you're viewing the HTML, all you have to do is just go here to split your screen. So once you go here, you have a split screen. So now I have my CSS here, then I could just close this side. So now I'm seeing my my HTML and my CSS. So now since I've given my header, let me minimize this a bit. Okay, so and let me minimize this a bit as well. So since I've given my header, sorry, to just to make everything fit in, let me, if you want to get rid of this section, because we don't really need it for now, all we need to do is we hit Control B. So once we hit Control B, this section closes. So now we could minimize it more, and while we have this side that we can still use to view. So I think it's okay like this. It's okay like this. So we could make our CSS a bit smaller since we don't really need it like that. So I think this is okay. So we could view our HTML and our CSS at the same time and our browser. So since we've given our parent tag here, which is this div, a header, which is hashtag header, and we gave it a display of row. So meaning H1 and UL are displaying as row. So H1 here and the UL that are displaying as row. Then now in order to make this class list to display as inline flex as previously as we did before. All we need to do is we hit enter. Then to actually call this, we say dot. We don't use hashtag, we say dot menu hyphen list. Then curly braces, hit enter. Then we can now say display colon inline flex. So give that a semicolon. So once we hit save, so as you can see, everything is now kind of back to normal, and we've achieved our goal with this. So this is how you can use CSS. It's highly recommended that you use your CSS in this format, which is outside of the HTML, because when you use it inside the HTML, it messes up your code. It makes it hard for you, who is the person typing the code, to even really understand what you wrote, as well as maybe someone else that you're working with to understand your code. So it's a bit messy, and it's advisable to have a different file for your HTML, a different file for your CSS, and a different file for your JavaScript. So with this, you've gotten a basic understanding of how to use CSS. So for example, if I wanted, since I've made a class for this allies, if I wanted all this, everything inside this menu list, this home, about, and contact us, to have a color of blue, I could come here and I could say something like color, then colon, then I would say blue, then end it with a semicolon. Once I hit save, you see this now appears as a color blue. So let me just go over the difference between the ID and the classes again. So ID is only used for selecting one thing. So for example, if we used only ID here, we could not use it here and here, but for class we could select multiple things at once. So hopefully you've gotten a basic understanding of how to use a class and an ID. So everything in CSS is all about IDs and classes. The very first thing you need to do is you go here to invoke your CSS file, then you create it. Then after creating it, then you go into your CSS file, which is the style.css, just as here. Then you now start selecting all the things that I've given IDs and classes. So mark your ID, use a hashtag. Then for your classes, you use a dot. So that's just that. So we just take this back to color black because it looks weird in blue. So we'll just leave it at that because black is the default color. So yeah, and okay, so if you want to learn more on CSS, kindly check out the next video. And if you liked this video, kindly leave a thumbs up, or if you have any questions, leave a comment. Then just check out the next video.